3 great projects, 1 beginner-friendly technique. So let's get right into this super simple knit triangle with any weight yarn and corresponding needles. And we'll start with a slip knot. To do that, fold your yarn, twist, reach through and grab, pull it through, and you've got a slip knot. Go ahead and place that loop on your needle. There, we've completed row 1. And we're ready to knit row 2. Put your stitch in your left hand and the empty needle in your right hand. We need 2 stitches on our right needle at the end of this row. So, to add one, we're going to do what's called a yarn over increase. Drape the working yarn over the right needle, and to prevent this from happening, what I do is drape that yarn over the right needle, and I'll hold it down with my finger so I can keep everything loose enough to knit into our 1 stitch, front to back, wrap counterclockwise around that right needle, pull up a loop, and let the old stitch drop off the left needle. 2 stitches, row 2 is done. Turn your needle back to the left hand, and we'll do it again for row 3. Yarn over, knit, and knit the yarn over from the previous row. It doesn't look like much yet, so let's keep going. Yarn over, knit, knit, knit. I love this method of increasing in knitting. Starting the row out with the yarn over. It's so easy to keep track of, and it produces these little loops on the edge that are both pretty and useful, which we'll find out later. As you keep going, your triangle will grow. It doesn't get more simple than that, right? You are in complete control of how big the triangle will become. So knit until it's 8 inches long, and you'll get a headscarf. Or keep going for 11 inches or so, and it can be a boho top. Or keep going and going and going, 20 inches or more for a classic triangle shawl. But whichever project you choose, you'll need to bind off. Let's come back to the headscarf to demonstrate a basic bind off. I also wanted to point out how my work is all bunched up on this short little needle. As long as your stitches don't fall off, it's totally fine. Just when you go to measure your piece, flatten it out in the middle to make it more accurate. And as I mentioned, 8 inches is a good length for a small adult headscarf. So when you're ready to bind off, still start with a yarn over and knit 1. But then pass the yarn over the stitch that you just knit. Knit the next stitch, and pass the previous stitch over. Knit, pass over. The key here is to not make your bind off too tight. A little hack that I like to do is swap out the right needle for a bigger one. Then you don't even have to think about it, and your bind off will have a good amount of stretch. Continue binding off until you've got 1 stitch left, and you can cut the yarn and pull through. We'll weave in these ends, and if this really is your first knitting project, I gotta say there's no right or wrong way to weave in your ends. If you feel like your yarn is secure after weaving a bit and the tail won't pop out, then you're done. If your yarn needs a knot hidden discreetly somewhere, that's fine too. Weaving in this tail from the start is a little trickier to do neatly, since there aren't a lot of stitches around for him to hide in. So let me show you what I came up with. I actually untied the initial slip knot, and I was able to tease out what looked like an additional yarn over at the tip here. And you can weave the end through these rows up here. So those are the finishing touches that are shared across all the projects. The headscarf specifically needs a couple of ties on each corner. I just worked a crochet hook under the last bind off stitch and brought through a 20-inch strand that I folded in half and tied it on like so. And since I used this tube yarn that kind of has raw edges, I also tied a knot at the bottom. Just like that, you have a cute triangle headscarf. For the larger projects, you'll need some longer needles, like these with a long cord between them. They're called circular needles, but you can knit flat with them as well. And we need all that cord to accommodate all the stitches you'll rack up if you decide to go all the way and make a shawl. Again, you can flatten out a spot at the center and measure from top to tip. I think 20 inches is the minimum that you would want to go for a shawl. Up to 30 inches or even 40 inches would be absolutely gorgeous. I like to wear mine like this, with a literal shawl collar, and you can tie the corners in the back and it makes it like a little bolero. Or wrap it this way around like a bandana style scarf. Last but not least, let's talk about the sizing on the top. You can try it on as you go to see if you've got the coverage that you want at the sides here. I went with 11 inches long, and I kind of came up with a formula. And if you ever need a reminder for any of these measurements, you can check out the blog post that I wrote to go along with this video, linked in the description below. To finish off the top, I decided to add fringe to the yarn over loops. And to make my fringe, I wrapped yarn around a notebook and cut along one edge to create a bunch of strands. Then I folded a strand in half and threaded it through a yarn over. And finished it off just like the straps from the headscarf. Do that a million zillion times to add oodles of boho fringe. Next, we'll add a total of 4 straps. Use any strap method you'd like. You could even harvest like ribbon or straps from some other clothing that you have. I'm going to demonstrate a more advanced cord if you're feeling ambitious. This cord is done with a crochet hook and a strand about 5 feet long and then folded in half. When one of the strands runs out, you can pull it through and tie the ends off. Add an identical strap to the other corner. And for extra support, I also added straps about 1/3 of the way down my triangle. But instead of attaching the strap at the yarn over, I went 1 stitch in, so that the strap could be more secure. And here's how the top will look with all the straps and fringe. And a little shot of those ties from the back. So there you have it, beginner knitters. 3 totally different projects that you can get started on today, even if you just know 1 stitch. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that it gives you confidence to try something new. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!